So I wanted to run through a couple of identifications with you guys so that you have an idea how to do the homework assignment and you can solve the rest of the identifications. You will find the key either in the Kingdom Planté on page 8, the lab handout, or in the new lab handout that also has the pictures in it, the indoor tree identification handout. So when you look at the first questions, your first couplet A and 1A and 1B, is leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, or leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. I gave you an example what an evergreen leaf looks like versus a deciduous one. Deciduous trees lose their leaves annually, so like an oak, whereas evergreens, that's your pine, that kind of thing. So does this look like a needle? Probably not, right? So 1B is what we've got here. 1B took you to 6. 6A or 6B, leaves compound or leaves simple. And I gave you the picture from the handout. So a simple leaf, there's the bud where the petiole is, where the leaf joins the twig. Whereas in the compound, there's no buds where the leaflets joins the petiole, and there's a bud where the leaf petiole joins the stem. So when you look on the top picture, hang on, let me show it to you a little more closely. I zoomed in a little more closely here, and it looks very clearly that these are single leaves because you see little buds where the petiole comes out of the twig. So leaves simple, go to 9. 9A, leaves opposite, or 9B, leaves alternate. So opposite means the leaves come opposite of each other out of the stem, and it's got to be directly opposite each other. Sometimes that's a little difficult to see, but in this case it's pretty clear they're alternate because they're not, there's one leaf per node, so not two leaves coming out of one node. So it's leaves alternate, go to 12. And I've told you before, as you go along in these identifications, sometimes you get to the point where it was like, oh, this is what this looks like. So here you've got leaves evergreen, somewhat tough and leathery, or leaves deciduous, texture variable. So this is tough and leathery. So, and some of you may recognize what this is at this point, but this is in fact an evergreen. So 12A going to 13. 13A, leaves with sharp points along the edges or leaves with smooth edges. And the fact that this is becoming more and more like what this looks like should make you feel hopeful about having the right identification here. So these leaves very much have sharp edges and points. This is in fact a holly, 13A. I zoomed in a little more closely to show you the points, but the points are pretty clearly visible in all the pictures. Which leaves you with holly, ilex, and your path is 1B, 6B, 9B, 12A, 13A, which takes you to holly. And that is what identifies the tree for you. The next unknown I want to look at is number 2. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2, or leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. While this is clearly a needle-like tree, well, needle-like leaves, not a deciduous one. Leaves attached in clusters of 5, evergreen, cones, large and woody, or leaves attached singly, evergreen or deciduous, cones, variable. This does not look like clusters of 5, so 2B is our next step. Leaves stiff, sharp-tipped, evergreen, cones, large and woody, or 3B, leaves flexible and soft-tipped, cones, small. You'd have to see them in real life to really be sure, but these look pretty flexible and soft-tipped. There doesn't seem to be anything really sharp at the edges, and these cones, you know, whatever a cone is, they don't look large and woody. There's nothing large and woody about this. 4A, leaves deciduous, cones woody and inconspicuous, whatever that means, or leaves evergreen, cones variable. Let's go with 4B because it really doesn't seem like 4A is what it is. But at this point, I'd be a little concerned that I'm at the right place. 5A, cones red and fleshy, or cones woody 1 inch or less in length. Huh, oh, those red things are cones? Well, so I think we got the right thing, right? That's the Pacific yew, which is from the genus Taxus. And the full path, how to get there, is 1A, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5A, Pacific yew. Let's do number 3. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen. Go to 2. Leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. Well, this looks like a deciduous leaf, so we're going to 6. Leaves compound, go to 7. Leaves simple, go to 9. Now when you look at the left, looks like it would be a simple leaf. And I zoomed in a little further to show it in more detail, but yes, this is very much a simple leaf, so we're going to 9. Leaves opposite, go to 10, or leaves alternate, go to 12. That's very clearly a leaves alternate, so 12 is your next step. Leaf evergreen, somewhat tough and leathery. Well, we already had those, so that's not it. Leaves deciduous, texture variable, go to 14. Leaves fan-shaped, the flat part usually broader than long, and broader at the tip than at the base, dark brown and rough. Yeah, that's not it. Leaves not as above, bark variable. Bark distinctive, with mottled brown outer bark that flakes off in jigsaw-like pieces to expose yellowish and whitish underbark, or bark not as above. I enlarged the bark a little bit so you could see it, because this is in fact bark distinctive with mottled brown outer bark that flakes off in jigsaw-like pieces to expose yellowish and whitish underbark. So this is a sycamore. And the full path to the sycamore is 1B, 6B, 9B, 12B, 14B, 15A, sycamore. Are you starting to get it? So we're going to do number 5 now, and I really just want you to go through a couple of these just so that we have an idea of how these are done. Back again to the first question. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2. Leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous, go to 6. Well, these are needle-like, so we're going to 2. Leaves attached in clusters of 5, evergreen, cones large and woody, or leaves attached singly, evergreen or deciduous, cones variable. We were there before and we didn't have the clusters of 5, but this one is very much a cluster of 5, and it does have large woody cones, so that's a white pine. So this white pine is simply 1A and 2A. So that's a really short path to get there. Let's do number 6. Again, we start with leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2, leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous, go to 6. So this one is leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. We're going to 9. Leaves opposite or leaves alternate. These leaves are alternate, so we're going to 12. Leaves evergreen, somewhat tough and leathery, or leaves deciduous, texture variable. These are not evergreen, and we know what somewhat tough and leathery looks like, and we know what tree that was, so this is not it. Leaves fan shaped, the flat part usually broader than long, and broader at the tip than at the base. Bark brown and rough. And that would be a ginkgo, and that's exactly what this looks like. So this is a ginkgo. And the full path to the ginkgo is 1B, 6B, 9B, 12B, 14A, ginkgo. And I gave you another picture of this one without all the lines so that you can actually see the full tree, what it looks like. The next tree I want us to look at is tree number 8. Again, leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2. Leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. These are broad and flat, mostly deciduous, so we're going to 6. Leaves compound or leaves simple. These leaves very much look like they're simple, so we're going to 9. Leaves opposite or leaves alternate. Now this one requires a little closer look. And that's actually why I did this particular tree. So you can see that these leaves actually, while they're simple, they're coming out of basically the same node. So these leaves are in fact opposite. So 9A, leaves opposite, going to 10. Leaves lobed or leaves not lobed. Here I'm giving you a picture just so that you see what this looks like. So lobed is that little leaf on the right. So it's like an oak leaf, for example, that would be lobed. These are clearly not lobed. They're actually entire, but clearly not lobed. So 10B, leaves not lobed, go to 11. Leaves 2 to 5 inches long, veins following the leaf edge towards the tip, or leaves 6 to 13 inches long, veins not as above. I gave you a more detailed look at that leaf, so these actually follow the leaf edge towards the tip, so this is a flowering dogwood. And if any of you have ever seen a catalpa, I have a catalpa in my front yard. The leaves on a catalpa are huge. So this is not a catalpa, it is very much a flowering dogwood. And the path to this flowering dogwood is 1B, 6B, 9A, 10B, 11A, flowering dogwood. Now we'll get to tree number 9. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2. Leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous, go to 6. So we're going to 6. Leaves compound or leaves simple. So the reason why I did this particular tree is because this is in fact a compound leaf. So you see on the left, you see that there's no buds. These are just leaflets. And then on the right hand side, you actually see it a little better where the bud comes out and then this leaf, the petiole comes out, and there's, 5 or 6 different things coming, leaflets coming off of the petiole. So this is a compound leaf. So we're going to 7 from here. 7A, leaves opposite. 7B, leaves alternate. Let's go look at this one a little closer. This is one of those situations where at first glance you may actually say these leaves are opposite, but they're not. If you look really closely, you realize that these are not opposite. They may look like they're opposite at the very end, but the ones on the bottom, those other two really are not. So these are alternate. So this is either a locust or a hickory, and in this case it's actually the hickory. So this is a hickory, and the path is 1B, 6A, 7B, hickory. And again, I took the, giving you one more picture so you can see what the whole tree looks like in all of its glory. And that brings us to tree number 14. Again, we start out with leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, or leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. These are deciduous, so we're going to 6. Leaves compound or leaves simple. These leaves are simple. Leaves opposite or leaves alternate. These are in fact opposite. They're coming from the same node. Leaves lobed or leaves not lobed. And this is a typical leaf that's lobed. So this is a maple. So this is the path to it is 1B, 6B, 9A, 10A, and that's your maple. Unknown number 15. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2, or leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. Well, this is an evergreen, so needle-like. Leaves attached in clusters of 5, and we've already had that one. We know what that looks like. Leaves attached singly, evergreen or deciduous, cone variable. So 2B it is. Leaves stiff, sharp-tipped, evergreen, cones large and woody. Or leaves flexible, soft-tipped, cones small. This looks like they may actually be sharp-tipped, so this may be, in fact, our spruce. So that's 1A, 2B, and 3A, which takes you to the spruce. And again, I'll give you the whole picture in its whole glory. And that brings us to the very last one we're going to go through together, which is number 18. Leaves needle-like, usually evergreen, go to 2, or leaves broad and flat, mostly deciduous. So 1B going to 6. Leaves compound or leaves simple. And this one, you can see it where the node is, where they come out. So the petiole comes out, and then there's like 3 leaves that are coming out of there. So this is in fact a compound leaf. That's usually the hardest part, trying to figure out if it's compound or not, but you can see where the bud is, and then the buds are not where the leaflets are. Leaves opposite or leaves alternate. And this looks very much like their opposite. So leaves opposite, go to 8. Leaf edges coarsely toothed, or leaf edges smooth or finely toothed. And this is a nice example of a coarsely toothed leaf edge. I showed you on the bottom again what they look like. Serrate, that's the same as toothed. So this is an ash leaf maple or a box elder. And the whole path for that tree would be 1B, 6A, 7A, and 8A, which is the ash leaf maple. And I'm hoping going through these examples will help you go through the rest of them. So there's 9 trees left, and I want you to identify all 9. And I'm giving you a quiz where you can put the results of your identifications. So yeah, go ahead and take care of that, do that. That'll allow you to test both your knowledge of tree identification as well as your ability to take a quiz online.